Welcome to Watch Good Movies, where I tell you what movies are good, and if you disagree, you're wrong. Today's topic is the 2019 Warner Bros. Movie Shazam. Shazam is DC's best cinematic release, bar none. I'm making this video because I don't believe it's talked about anywhere near enough. I don't know why it's not talked about. When Marvel had their franchise split in two, Disney was able to make a multi-billion-dollar franchise, whereas DC, with every comic book property under its name and bigger properties, couldn't make a coherent universe. The CW is garbage, but at least they have a coherent universe. Shazam is a product of what I believe DC is starting to do. Shazam is what happens when a production company tries to advertise the living hell out of their products and puts a good director in its seat. What do I mean? Well, for Shazam, there was Zachary Levi, which would immediately draw in every fan of anything he's ever done, probably the biggest of which is Chuck. David F. Sandberg would draw in basically all of his fans, because David F. Sandberg fans know his work is good and that he's going to put his best foot forward at all times. Jack Dylan Grazer will draw in Stranger Things fans. Shazam is a character that's niche enough and popular enough to be a fan favorite, like Constantine or Zatanna, and it's a Christmas movie. You put all those in, it appeals to several different audiences. You get a lot of people that want to watch a good movie and a lot of eyes on what you're going to do moving forward. So onto the actual movie. Shazam is a fantastic movie for several reasons. First of which is it's comic accurate. It's not one-to-one accurate to the comics that came before it, but it's faithful to what the original Shazam story was. One great example to embody this is that we have accurate costumes. This isn't a complete redesign so you barely notice their costumes, like certain characters. This is the flashy Shazam costume that we all know and love. This movie starts off with Christmas music to establish from the get-go that this is going to be a Christmas movie. And it continues to ensure you from Santa Claus to the tree decorating scene to all of the snow all over the place. I have watched this movie at least 24 times and I still love it. This is something I don't get from modern movies, especially Marvel movies. I enjoy certain Marvel movies. Marvel has a problem with a lot of its movies, and this movie does a great job displaying how to fix it. Marvel has what I'd like to call a joke quota. This means that after X amount of time, there needs to be a joke. And I think a lot of audiences are catching on to this. In a lot of Marvel movies, what you'll see is either character consistency or plot consistency given up in order to make some sort of joke. This breaks jokes on anything but the first watch through. A joke is good when it makes sense in the continuity that the movie has already established. And there are certain scenes that don't need jokes. Some examples of when jokes break scenes are when Bruce Banner falls onto Rainbow Bridge in Thor Ragnarok. This is a scene that's supposed to be establishing that everyone's going into battle. This is supposed to be a high tense scene where blood's boiling and you're getting really excited, and he just flops there. It breaks all the excitement you initially had because they needed a joke. When Thor throws a ball at the window and it bounces back at him in the same movie, Thor is established as a strong being that can go one-on-one with the Hulk, and he's taken out by a bouncy ball. This is a bad joke that destroys part of Thor's character in order to make a joke. Thor Ragnarok is filled with this, and Captain Marvel is basically only this. And some examples of some good jokes, especially in Shazam, is during the superpower montage. Billy Batson has been established as a character that's willing to go with the flow, and Freddie Freeman is a character that has been established to be a geek in this sort of thing. So it makes sense that Freddie would want to do this, and it makes sense that Billy would want to go along with it. Some more specific examples would be the secret fire test. Freddie previously told some robbers to shoot Billy in the face, so safety isn't a concern. And Freddie is a geek when it comes to superhero things, so it makes sense that he would want to test out Billy's powers. Billy has been established as willing to go along with this. He even came to Freddy when all of this happened. So this makes sense in continuity and is funny. It also makes sense that two kids, 14, 15, would create a YouTube channel when this happens. When the little kid's playing with the Batman and Superman action figures, this makes sense. It makes sense that the kid would have the Batman and Superman action figures since they're such big characters. And Savannah and Shazam are fighting in the same area. This makes sense in continuity, and it's funny because we've all seen Batman vs. Superman. This is basically that movie. Keeping continuity is integral when telling jokes, and it seems like something that's forgotten by either filmmakers or the film industry nowadays. Every joke I could find in Shazam kept continuity, and it was really nice to see. And scenes where jokes were not needed were left out, like when Billy found his mother, or when everyone was captured. Throwing in a joke at this point would just break all of the tension that's been built up, all of the sadness that's been built up. When you want to build up sadness or anger or something like that, throwing a joke in just breaks the scene. On top of jokes being good, I think the movie did a great job establishing that superheroes were a thing without giving too much information. You could tell from the movie that Sandberg was given a don't mess with the universe restriction. He hinted at Batman during the Magic Mike scene. The action figures was Batman and Superman. Superman was the last scene of the movie. Aquaman was the final end credits scene. And if you ignore major players like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the movie sets up Mr. Mind and Black Adam. So, connecting a universe, this movie did a phenomenal job. Beyond continuity, the theme of family was so perfectly set up, and I can't think of a better hero to do that with than Shazam. Savannah, having a bad family, decides he's better off on his own and thrives for ultimate power. While Billy, starting in a place all on his own, gradually decides the family is more valuable. And not out of a situation where he's forced to in order to survive, but on his own accord. This is a key element, and it makes the movie really good. I'm going to pride myself on having a channel that's 100% honest, so I'm going to identify the few problems that I saw with this movie. First off, the doctor touches the door and immediately disintegrates. And Savannah, a super smart scientist, decides that grabbing the door handle is the best solution from here. It's magic, so it could theoretically work, but all the evidence points to him disintegrating, which would have been a much shorter movie. My second problem is that no cameras are running during the scene, so the scene later can't happen. I only noticed it after a couple of watches, so it doesn't really bother me all that much, but I still felt like I should point it out. I did hear from one person that watched it that the school seemed a bit bullyish and that it wasn't realistic, and I find this completely inaccurate. This school is heavily established as a bad school, from metal detectors to a kid being ran over to everyone making fun of Freddy at lunch to the friars picking on Freddy all the time. This school is established as a pretty bad school, and I can say from my middle school experience that this 100% would have happened there. And I'm only 21, so it hasn't been that long since I've been in middle school, but I don't think it's changed so much that my experience would be completely out of the realm of possibility today. And the last problem I have is a problem more that I have than a problem with the movie in whole. I wish the 7 Deadly Sins would have been actors rather than just mist and CGI monsters. In the comics, the 7 Deadly Sins are people that have a definite look. They're not super big characters in the comics, so changing them to just be fog monsters wasn't really a big deal, but I found it really distracting that I couldn't tell who was who. I could fairly reasonably tell who Wrath was, And when I looked at it, Lusk was obviously the big fat guy, and I pretty much didn't put together the Creed was forearms, but all of the other ones kind of just blend in together, and I found it distracting that I couldn't tell the sets apart. So at the end, when Shazam goes, I've counted 6, and Envy's in here, I found it really fun, but if I could tell the difference from them, it would have been a lot better, because then I could have gone, oh, that person's there, that person's there, they left Envy there, that could come into play, and I think it was a missed opportunity. Beyond that, symbolism is something that will give your movie a ton of rewatchability, and this movie does that. Something I recently noticed is that Savannah is playing with an 8-ball in the car. 8-balls are notoriously something that tells you your future, so when the 7W tells Savannah finds us on the 8-ball, it foreshadows that Savannah will find the 7W in the future. It's something I didn't notice until recently, but I think it's something that's really fun and added a lot of rewatchability. My 30th watch and I find something new. That's something that makes me feel good, and that's what a director's job is to do. On top of the 8-ball, the prize that Billy gets at the fair is a compass. Compass symbolizes finding your way. That is the story of this movie. Billy Batson finding his way. So it makes sense that the prize he gets is a compass. But from a continuity standpoint, it makes no difference whether the prize is a compass or a deck of plans. But that's where stuff like this comes in, and it's really fun to see a director that puts that much thought into something like this. Something I would also like to identify is the parallel between the Wizard Shazam and Billy Batson. The Wizard is trying to find the perfect person to pass his power onto, and in doing so creates the problem of this movie. He creates Dr. Savannah. Billy Batson is trying to find the right or perfect person to be his mother, and in doing so pushes away any love or affection anyone tries to give him. There are two people falling down the same path that Billy Batson is going to overcome. This is a really nice parallel. This movie is insanely good. 10 out of 10. I couldn't make it better if I tried. If you haven't seen this movie, then you should have watched prior to watching this, but you won't be disappointed. It's on HBO Max, and it's the best Christmas movie of all time, but it's the best DC movie of all time, bar none. It's the best superhero movie of all time, maybe Marvel. But 10 out of 10, best movie, you should watch it. If you already watched it, you should watch it again. HBO Max, not sponsored.